welcome to another episode of Sleep Paralysis News. I'm Sheila Price-Brooks and I'm here with my co-host Cyrus, and we've got a fantastic guest with us today, Zain, and I'm really looking forward to hearing his story and hearing about his experiences. So I'm assuming everyone is familiar with me by now and who I am and what I do. Cyrus, I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Just that I'm a filmmaker here in Columbus, Ohio, in pre-production for my film project titled Aimless, which has to deal with sleep paralysis. So been networking a lot here in Columbus, and I guess we have a mutual friend with me and Zain, Maya, and she linked us up. So we're here to ask Zain some questions, and so we can build up all these testimonies for sleep paralysis.
Wonderful. So without further ado, Zain, I'd like to hear, we all want to hear what your story is and your experience of sleep paralysis.
Sure, of course. First off, I just wanted to thank you both for, inviting me on here. I'm really honored to be here. This is my first ever podcast, and I'm really excited for this. So, yeah, I'll just get started. So I have had sleep paralysis a few times over the, past, let's say 12, 13 years. And I'd say the first one was the scariest one for me. I think I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And I was sleeping just, flat, like looking up, like on my back, basically. And I woke up, it was dark. My room or my door was slightly open, so there was a little bit of light coming from the outside. My parents were downstairs, watching TV. And I opened my eyes and I couldn't move. And this never ever happened to me before. I opened my eyes and I'm looking straight up to like my ceiling, and I see this really weird figure on top of me, kind of just hovering over me, like face to face. And I couldn't move. My heart was pounding really hard, and of course, I'm really young, and it's very scary as a 7-year old. Actually, for any age, I'm sure it'd be scary, but it just makes
Yeah.
it worse since I was so young. And I remember just kind of looking at it, and I remember its features. It had a little bit of hair, kind of like this around this, and it was completely gray in color. It was like a gray smoke looking figure, and it had like either very black eyes or some type of like grayish eyes, something like that, and it had fangs, very distinctive fangs, like a skull. And as I was terrified, and my heart was beating, but I could not move my hands. I couldn't do anything. I wasn't even shaking. Um, and after I'd say about 5 to 10 seconds, I started to, struggle and try to move or, start. And I eventually started shaking here and there out of fright. And then I was able to, build up the courage to scream as loud as I can. And I screamed loud, and I heard my mom shuffle, get up, and run up to me, and she opened the door, turned on the lights, and at this point, I was crying. I was able to move at this point, but I was too scared to move. So I was shaking and sobbing and crying, but I was just too scared to move, so I stayed in that position. And my mom came and she turned on the light, and as soon as she turned on the light, whatever figure that was on top of me, it kind of dissipated to the side and went into the corner of the room, and it just kind of disintegrated, Um, and thank God it never ever that scenario never ever happened to me again. There were many other instances after that I had gone through, which I can also talk about. But that was probably the most scary, and I had trouble sleeping after that for a very long time. I'm sure you'd know, like as a kid, something like that is very traumatic. And I think it took me many weeks to get over that. I would never want to, go I'd never want to leave my parents, downstairs. I'd never want to go upstairs by myself after that. I was just kind of stuck. They'd tell me, "Oh, it's bedtime. You got school tomorrow." I was like, "No, 5 more minutes. Let me sit down here in the light." Or I would go upstairs and sleep in the light, and not, I'd be very scared. And so yeah, that's my first story for sure. And if you guys wanted to hear more of them, there are different ones that don't specifically have like some figure or anything like that, but a lot of weird things have happened to me where I have been unable to move, but I was older. So if you guys wanted to hear that too, I'd be willing to share that as well.
Yeah. Back to the first experience though.
Mhm.
Did anyone believe you when you told them that as a 7-year-old? And why were you crying? Your mom didn't believe you, or did anyone believe you?
I don't think so. No, I think it's sometimes hard to believe a 7-year-old, and even an adult, it's hard to believe them sometimes. There's so many, there's so many instances where people are like, oh, maybe it was just a dream, or you just saw something like a trick of the mind, or so it's hard for anybody to believe, especially a 7-year-old. So yeah, nobody believed me. My mom was like, oh, you're just tired, just go to sleep, just relax, and she like slept there with me, and she was like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. My mom, very loving mom, and my dad also came. He was like, you're okay, don't worry, and made me feel better. But yeah, nobody believed me.
So what did that do to you when you experienced something so real and no one believed you? Like, how did that affect you? Because that's kind of frustrating and that can do damage even more, really.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely was really frustrating because even after, like I said, it like kind of affected me for the next like few weeks, and nobody really understood because I was like, oh, like I saw something. And I told my parents like, I saw something and it was weird. I don't know what it was, and they were just like, oh, it's nothing. Don't worry. And I'm also Muslim, and especially right now, I'm very, I'm very in tune with my religion, and I believe that God is protecting me. God is has I pray to God, and God will protect me. And so that's what my parents would tell me back then too. Like nothing can touch you as long as you believe in God and you pray to God and you pray that He protects you. You don't need to worry. And obviously, as a kid, it's even after hearing that, it's still hard to cope with it and get over it. And because if it happened once, why can't it happen again? That's kind of what the feeling was at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely very frustrating, especially in the beginning, because nobody believed me. So yeah.
So I would like
Good.
to hear about these other weird things that have been happening then, whilst you're sleeping.
Sure, sure. So the next one that I clearly remember, it wasn't anything scary, and there also may be an explanation behind it that I can also discuss. So there's one time, again, I was in the same position facing upwards and I couldn't move. And I felt like somebody was like, I just saw like a hand or some shadow punch me in the face. And I woke up in a jolt, and my nose was bleeding, and there was nobody around me. It was again at night, and I was a little bit older. I think I was probably around like 12 or 13 at this point. And I kind of grew out of the scaredness phase. I was more just like, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
Um, and I was really confused, and like I got up and my nose was just bleeding a lot. And my nose hurt a little bit, kind of like when sometimes when you sneeze, you kind of feel like, your nose burns a little bit. It felt like that. And so I got up and I went to the bathroom, and like I was cleaning up the blood, and it wasn't stopping. It was a pretty bad blow, if that's what you would call it. And I didn't realize until very later, which is actually like a week ago, that I started to realize that as a kid, especially in the heat, I would I had frequent nosebleeds. And also when I sneezed, if it was hard enough, my nose would start hurting and it would start bleeding too. So my inference from that is that it wasn't sleep paralysis per se, but I mean, even though at the beginning I couldn't move, I was just kind of stuck up there. But it felt like maybe might have sneezed really hard, and it was also winter time, so the heat was on, and my room used to get really hot, and it was like the bad type of heat that hurt me. And I think maybe from that I sneezed, and also because of the heat, I may have started bleeding. I can't confirm if that's true or not. I hope, I just hope that's what it is. But that was the second situation that I had felt that was really weird, because the crazy part is I saw like a black figure, like a black hand come and kind of hit me, like a grayish figure hit me in the face. So I really don't know what it was. But yeah.
That's
Yeah, I feel like that is the power of the imagination sometimes, because I've heard so many experiences so far. One that kind of reminds me of a guy sharing his story, and he had these bites on his ankle, and he said that aliens came and was like trying to attack him on
Mhm,
the ankles, and then people in the comments were saying, "Hey, those are bug bites. Those are bug
mhm,
bites." So when you're sleeping and things are happening around you, your brain is trying to interpret it. So it probably was bug bites, but as you're sleeping and you're hallucinating, your mind is trying to make sense of what is happening to you. So
mhm,
I like that you're being fair in your judgment by saying it's like the air conditioner and the heat, and you're trying to make sense of it. At the same time, it is the power, like I was saying, of the imagination, where we can heal ourselves because we have that expectancy of it. But
mhm.
at the same time, we can cause pain on ourselves with that's the power of our imagination. Like it's crazy. So that's something for you to interpret. But and back to your first story, a lot of people have the door cracked. That is a huge thing, and that's going to be in my screenplay in the movie because it's such a common thing. For some reason, the door is cracked, and a lot of people see just like a beaming white light just coming through the crack of the door. And another thing is that the demons are on top of your chest. There's not
Mhm.
many stories like, oh, he was on my head or he was on my shoulder. He was around like my knees, like it's this chest, something. And I don't know if you guys know about chakras or where the spirit is. There's a pineal gland, but I feel like if you read the Bible, it says about the man's heart, the heart, and there's something right here in our heart. Like if you do an autopsy on us, it's just a blob of blood just pumping. So what does it mean when we say like a man's heart, like we think with our heart, or that player has heart? What do we mean by that? And if we can define that more clearly, but I think that there is something in our heart, and that's why there's something on our chest. There's something spiritual right here in our mind, and there's something spiritual in our heart as well. And it's hard to explain, but I know from my experience and from others, but I can't explain it to other people. There's something going on in that area that's like it's some sort of spiritual process in there.
I would still
Yeah,
like
definitely. No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I would still like to hear more because I feel as though you've got more to share with us in terms of experiences that you've had.
Oh yeah, get it
Oh, of
all out.
course, of course. Yeah, yeah. There's actually one really recent that happened to me, I think just about a few days ago, and I'll get to that one. I had one before that as well. So the second most recent one, the one before that just happened. What happened was that I was really tired. Most of these happened like when I was just extremely tired. And I believe that has something to do with also your REM sleep and stuff like that. But I was really tired and I was taking a quick nap, and it was the month of Ramadan for us, so we're fasting. So the day goes by, we're not eating anything, and we break our fast, and then at night we're supposed to lead prayer. Or for people who have memorized the Quran, I have done that as well. We stand up at night and we lead prayer and read the whole Quran basically. And so I was tired from the day from school, and then I came back and I was like very sleepy. I broke my fast at sunset, and then I took a small nap before I started leading, and I was really tired. And I remember waking up in between this nap, and I remember distinctively looking up, and again, I wasn't able to move. And I looked up and I see a huge spider, just massive, like I'd say bigger than like the size of a plate, or about the size of like a dinner plate. And it's like right where my left foot is, all the way down, and it's starting to crawl down onto like my bed, and I was not able to move. And I I don't remember what happened after that. I it was just kind of my heart was racing again, and I knew that I'm probably just it's probably nothing. But at the time, I was half asleep, and I kind of panicked. And I remember I was struggling to move, and I eventually got up and I ran out the door. I ran out my door, and like it was just everyone was just like, "What's going on with you?" You know, I just ran out like I was like in a marathon or something. And then it took me a while to, you know, figure out what just happened. And then after about like 5 seconds of just standing outside my door, I was like, "Wait, what am I doing?" And I go back in and I look around, and there's nothing there, obviously. So it's some scary
Oh, you
stuff.
can't tell nobody this stuff, man. You're looking crazy now. You got to keep this to yourself.
I
Can I
know, I
ask you
know.
this though? How do you
Yeah.
feel about spiders in real life? Are you afraid of spiders in real life? Like in reality, is that a fear of yours huge? Or can you just
No,
okay.
I don't have a fear of them. I mean, obviously, I don't like them. Like, I'm not gonna go and like pick one up if I found one. And I mean, of course, the bigger they are, I think anybody would be scared of them. And so like I've seen decently sized spiders, and you know, and in like in India or overseas or wherever, you know, even outside. I've seen them, and you know, I just mind my own business. Maybe I stare at them for a few seconds. I'm like, wow, that's a big spider, and then I walk away. You know,
Yeah.
but seeing a spider the size of a dinner plate, it's a completely different story, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's huge,
I
and
know.
it's just over there, and it's scary, you know?
Yeah,
So
I asked that because during sleep paralysis, a lot of people's fears come to life. So that's why some people see aliens, some people see demons. Um, I've heard of like gargoyle type entities. You just said a
mhm,
spider. So when you're in the sleep paralysis state, it's like your subconscious mind is taking over. Like your conscious mind is
right.
resting, but then your subconscious mind who's taking in all your truths and all the data from the world is now
Mhm,
becoming alive and is becomes the director of your dream. Your subconscious
right.
mind is the director of your dream, unless you get into that lucid dreaming and astral projection where you're like, oh, I'm dreaming, I could take control of this. If you don't have
Mhm,
that, then you know your dreams are revealing what's going on deep down in the suppression of your mind and your heart. So I mean, if you say you're not afraid of spiders, I think you're afraid of big spiders though.
yeah, definitely. I'd definitely be afraid of big spiders. You know, there's a movie called Lord of the Rings, and there's in one of the scenes there's a huge spider, like massive. I'd say like the size of like a truck. And I remember I was watching it with my cousins actually, and I was a kid. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and I saw it, and that always stuck with me. How big that spider was. I don't know. Maybe its kid pulled up in my dream. You know, so I don't know. It's a very big
Yeah,
spider.
that's crazy you say that because in our storyboard for my film, we have all these demon concepts. One of them is like a spider in the corner, and it's
Hmm.
like the size of a human being, and it's like a spider demon that because we're
Yeah.
taking in all this information that we're hearing from people from all over the world, and we're trying to come up with these concepts that are similar with everybody so that we can recreate it in the film. And so that's crazy that the spiders just those 8 legs and they're extremely creepy. So I think that's kind of in all of our subconscious, like bats and things of that
Yeah.
nature, can still like even though you're not afraid of it, like some other things, but yeah, you have a big bat in your house or a big spider, you're like you're going to jump. So
Yeah.
your subconscious, what I'm getting at is your subconscious knows what can scare you, you know.
Hmm. That's true. That's
But
true.
Sheila,
And let's hear the most recent one.
Yeah, so the most recent was really weird. So I was literally just sleeping, and again, I just had my finals. Today was my last final for my exams. I just finished college, and so I've been a little sleep deprived this past week, you know, because of my exams. And so I think this was 2 or 3 days ago where I was pretty sleep deprived. I only slept a few hours that night, and I was sleeping, and I woke up because I heard somebody talking to me. And also keep in mind, I'm a sleep talker. So again, it could have just been me hearing myself, but obviously, you know, sometimes you hear it and you're like, wait, who was that? So I woke up, and this time I wasn't able to move my body, but I was able to move my head, right? So, and I was a little disoriented. I couldn't really figure out what was going on around me. You know, there's there were no lights in my room, but I have one light on my speaker over here, like for my computer, and that white light always stays on. So sometimes it casts a shadow on the chair that I'm sitting on, and it casts a shadow onto the wall behind me, and my bed is facing that way. So if I open my eyes, that's the first thing I'm seeing. So that shadow that I was looking at, it was moving towards me very slowly. And again, I couldn't move my like lower body. I can only move my head, and that too, I just kept it still. And at this point, like I've seen these, you know, I've had these instances before, and at this point, I'm also like pretty strong in my faith, you know. And I was just like, oh, come on, man. Like, I don't need this right now. Like, you know, like I need to sleep. But I was still staring at it, and I was like reading my prayers, whatever, but I wasn't scared. My heart was pounding, but I was like it's not going to do anything to me. Like there's no way, and it has to be. It's probably just me, like, you know, just having some imagination thing going on. So all I did was I actually said it too. So all I did was stare at it, and I said, "Come on, seriously." I said it out loud, but I still wasn't able to move my lower body, or maybe I just didn't try to. But I was like, "Come on, seriously," and I was just staring at it for a while, and then after some time it stopped moving, and I started to realize that it didn't move to begin with at all. It was just kind of my imagination making it sway towards me, and then it went back to normal. And then after that I just closed my eyes, and my heart was still pounding, and I didn't move, but I went back to sleep because I was just so tired. So that was the most recent one, and in that scenario I wasn't really scared at all. I was just more annoyed. um, and things like this have happened many times before, and I guess that's probably why I was like not scared, because it's happened before and I'm kind of used to it. It doesn't happen often. I'd say maybe once, like every few months, but it's you know, those instances I remember, and I'm kind of like used to it if it happens. So now I know, like, you know, like nothing's gonna hurt me, you know. So that was my most recent one. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
I'd
that's
like,
a
how do
go ahead.
you, what's the framework that you use for these experiences? How do you make sense of them for yourself?
So are you talking about just like what's going through my mind when this happens?
No, how do you, I mean, you're telling us what happened, but what's your
Mhm.
rationale? How do you, are you saying that you think it's your imagination? Are you engaging with spirits? Is it an hallucination? You know, is it your mind just making things up? Is it
Is it
alternate
is it
dimension?
scientific?
What
Is it
what
scientific or spiritual?
I
what
see. Okay.
do you use? Because that's then, I suppose, your coping mechanism, and you'd use that to kind of get through them, so to speak.
Right. So, for most of these instances where, you know, I just get up and I see like a shadow moving and then it moves back, stuff like that, I think it's mostly to do with, I think it's more scientific related. Just because you know, I mean, I'm sure you know way more than me about this, right? But I've taken psychology and stuff like that, and I learned about REM sleep and the different stages of sleep, and I know that you can correct me if I'm wrong, but REM sleep is one of the deepest sleeps that you can be in, and when you wake up, and that's the level, that's the stage in where you dream. I could be wrong, but and so if you're woken up at that time, your imagination is still running, which can make you see things outside. And again, I could be wrong about this, but I remember it being one of those stages of sleep where if you're woken up, you still can imagine things. And also, I noticed that most of the time when this happens, it's usually when I'm very tired. And so I feel like I would be in deep sleep for a longer period of my actual sleep, which makes it therefore easier to have these, you know, these hallucinations, or, you know, these imagination, or this imagination type of thing happen. Um, in terms of some of the other things, when it comes to like shadows and figures and stuff looking at me, I feel like it could be both. Because in religion too, there are obviously some, you know, there are things, at least, you know, in my religion, in Islam, there is a different being called the jinn, and it's very well known too. So I feel like it could be possible that it's also a mixture of that and also my deep sleep, REM, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I know that, I can face it, and I don't have to be scared because I have God on my side. But I think it's for those things, the shadows and stuff, it's definitely, I think it's a mix of both, definitely.
Yeah, so I feel like just hearing so many different stories, like I was saying, a common thing is like sleep deprivation or sleep hygiene. So when your body is really not on a pattern, a lot of sleep
Hmm.
paralysis happens with naps or when someone's sleeping not in their bed or in a new environment. So when your body is not in this pattern, so you're going through rapid eye movement in that deep stage and you just wake up, which is the phenomenon. You're I cannot prove this, but it seems like when you're dreaming in that deep stage, you are kind of detached from your body. And then so when you wake up, it's like, hey, my spirit has not returned to my body yet, to my temple yet. So then you're paralyzed. And then your spirit, which is a spirit molecule, DMT, pineal gland, like I'm getting deep into the stuff, but I'm trying to come to a conclusion, which I may never, but I mean, we can get closer through conversation. And I do feel like if you are really tired and you are not on some type of healthy sleep pattern, that is when your body gets confused with
Hmm.
how many hours am I sleeping? When do I naturally wake up? How long does it take me to get into REM? All this stuff is jacked up. And so, like I was saying, you are in that deep because you're so tired, you go to REM really fast. You'll get there really
Hmm.
fast because you get into that deep sleep. And then something happens where you get woken up before your spirit returns. And I mean, that might sound crazy to people, but for those who have had out of body experiences, it won't be that crazy. Like people were like, I saw the doctors operating on me and stuff. So this sleep process stuff does prove that there is a spiritual side to life, no matter what religion you are. You can be atheist or agnostic or Christian, Muslim, whatever. But this sleep process phenomenon is really proving that there's something that is beyond the eye in this world. And it's
Hmm.
up to everyone to believe what they want to believe.
One,
Definitely.
I'd like to ask one last thing. Have you told
Sure.
anybody about your experiences? Do you discuss it openly?
Yeah, I do with most of my close friends, because all of them I think have had somewhat similar experiences. Actually, I was just talking about it with two of my friends, I think earlier today, and one of them was, the same thing about like the sleep paralysis, and it's always on the chest most of the time. One of my friends said that they were sitting on the bed, looking out the window, but most of the rest of my friends said it was always something to do with the chest. And so usually, like when I'm talking to my friends, I have some deep conversations with them, and sometimes it just comes up, because all of us believe in, the afterlife and the spiritual world and stuff like that. And these can be instances that, these can be instances of that. And so we do like to talk about it with each other, and we're pretty open about it with each other. And it also kind of gives me insight to, also to believe that, like other people are having it too, and they're okay. Why can't I be okay? So yeah, I do discuss it with my friends, and it's a very interesting topic, to talk about. It's very, supernatural or spiritual, and you always, get you kind of think outside the box, see what other people see, and it's interesting. So yeah, I do like to talk about it with my friends, not to everybody. So
Oh
doing
yeah.
this on a
Yeah.
podcast is very different, but yeah.
Yeah, there's other episodes, so you are not alone. I've experienced it. Sheila's experienced it. So the more we come together, people will see like, hey, not they all can't be crazy, and that's the game plan for us to come together. So
Definitely.
it's like they've got to be saying some truth. So I'm glad you are now an experienced sleep paralysis experiencer. So it's not so shocking and frightening. Because if it were to be, then that's when the hallucinations and the things get bigger and bigger, and you may have more episodes and they may be more frightening. But it's not probably going to happen to you, since you know you can rely on God and you can look at that entity and be like, are you kidding me? Or are you for real? Are you joking? Like that's experience right there. Like not many people can do that. I'm telling you. So I'm glad that you've got to that point where you know what is happening. So you're no longer a victim or controlled by fear through this anymore.
Wonderful.
Definitely.
Well, thank you very much, Zain. It's been really interesting listening to your story, and thank you very much for sharing your experiences as well, you know.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast on this podcast, giving you guys insight on it too. And I really appreciate it.